It's time for Sustainable Living with Glenn Boblitz, the show that helps you be prepared to care for your family regardless of the circumstances that may come your way. Now, here's your host for today, Mark Lamb.
Sustainable Living Made Easy. Janet, once again, being the highlight of the show. Okay, we'll have some good content for you, but anyway, we got to give her a hard time.
Oh, well, she's the star.
You notice she just shows up?
She's the star of the show anyway. We know that.
Shows up at the beginning, she shows up at the end, and
it's magic, isn't it?
It is magic. So what you got for us today, Glenn?
Well, I've been kind of geared towards the guy that's really growing food for his family, the whole entire family, you know, and larger gardens and, you know, really trying to do it out there. And I think we've left some people behind, which is my fault.
Okay.
There are people that may be just renting a little property. They're not allowed to plow up the front yard, but they may have just a little flower bed, a little space that they could work, or they may just have a couple planters on their front porch. So I want to address that.
Okay.
Just smaller type gardening that can still put out quite a bit of crops.
Okay.
And if they have just a little more room, they get a little more crops and a little better technique and, you know, just all the above.
Yeah.
So that's where we're headed at.
Okay.
Square foot gardening would be the first place. That'd be for the person that has a small spot but wants to pack in a lot of food.
Okay.
Traditionally, when you think of these gardens or agriculture, it's all in a row. Row planting, they call it.
Right.
Now, why was that developed?
I
For
guess,
machinery.
well, I was going to say the industrial age kind
Right.
of helped push us
It's
there.
it's hard to do it any other way for somebody that has mechanized equipment.
Sure.
But that's not how it was always done. It used to be you packed in as much as you could into a small space. It doesn't work you as hard. You don't need as much land. Because, I mean, if you're going to till up new land, you're going to have to deal with the rocks and all that. So you're going to have to start out small. So they said, okay, if I only have a 10 by 10 area that I can work in, I'm going to plant this stuff tight by the square foot. So if you, let's say radishes, you know, a little row of radishes, like a cartoon row of radishes, you know, like you would see on TV.
Right.
In a cartoon. That's how they did it.
Okay.
Why? They're not running tractors through there. So if you had a row 50 foot long of radishes, could you pack them into a much smaller area? Sure you could. Radish is not that big. The tops of the radish is not that big. You know, it may be 6 by 6 when it's fully leafed out.
Okay.
So every 6 inches you could have a radish. Instead of a long 50-foot row, you could have a 4-foot wide space and plant them on 6-inch grid. So they would pack into that space very easily. That's the principle of this square foot gardening. You just do where you can reach all the way across, which is about a 4 foot wide.
Right.
So in the square foot garden, you would have a 4 foot patch that you could reach from both sides and a 2 foot walkway between each one of those patches. Now, corn would be a little different, but the spacing's still the same. Instead of having this giant long row with 30 inches between where you could, run a tractor to hill them up, you don't need that. You can plant the rows a little closer together and still get a lot of corn in that little patch.
Right.
Now, are you going to get enough to feed your cattle? No. We're talking about feeding your family. So that's the idea of the square foot garden. It's for people who have limited space, but still have enough space to plant something in the ground.
Okay.
A lot of people like to use a raised bed system, not necessarily for the ease of bending over, but rather than fighting some hard rocky ground or red clay, they would just put a border up of metal, logs, whatever you had, and put good soil in it. So you're starting out with good soil. The ideally would be to strip the grass off, which is not an easy thing to do. I would suggest you just take your weed eater and burn it to the ground. Just absolutely just right down to the nub.
Okay.
Then take cardboard boxes, break them down till you end up with a big piece of cardboard. Layer the whole bottom of it with cardboard. Put your soil on top of that. Now, if you're going to build 12 inches of soil or 10 inches of soil, if you're using a 1x10 or a log, that's a lot of soil. You can also put leaves down. Leaves will eventually break down.
Right.
The only problem with wood chips or anything like that that is almost no cost is it steals nitrogen. So you got to remember that. So you put this layer of cardboard down, a layer of heavy leaves, and I'm talking 8-10 inches of leaves,
Okay.
and then just walk them down. Spray them down with water, soak that down good. Put fertilizer on it, whether it's chicken tea or some other organic stuff or some 10-10-10 Osmocote. Because during that decomposition time period that it's breaking that stuff down, it's stealing nitrogen out of the neighboring soil. A lot of people have a problem with wood chips because it sucks the nitrogen out of the soil. It's the process that it needs that nitrogen to break things down. That's how the biological system works.
Can I ask you a question about wood
But
chips?
it does release it afterwards.
Okay. Is there a certain wood chip we should stay away from? Because I'm like my neighbor said, well, grass is never going to grow there because it's under a pine tree or it's under an oak tree,
right?
And the droppings tend to kill that soil.
Most leaves will do that. Almost all leaves will have tannins in them, which is acidic. So you can also put a little lime in there if that's what you have. Oak leaves tend to do good. The leaf mold will build up and eat those tannins. Okay. But it takes time. Right. And you don't want it either changing your soil so drastically that your pH is really high, or really low for acidic. Pine trees tend to do that. But they do it a lot slower than wood chips does.
All right, gotcha.
At any rate, I suggest that you do a little reading on it and see how to amend this. But to treat your base layer, now there's the wood chips you can put in the bottom also. Again, you're going to have to pre-treat those.
Right.
Now, they'll tie up the nitrogen for a while. But if you add the nitrogen there, make that available to them, they won't suck the life out of your good soil that you're going to put on top of that.
Okay.
So that's the idea, is to get a base layer of organic material started, give it some nitrogen so it doesn't steal it from your good dirt. Then you put the good dirt on top. But finding good topsoil is a trick too. But I've noticed there's a lot of places around here that are starting to carry garden soil, which is nothing more than a mix of carbon that they get from the gasification plants or just a supplier, a little bit of sand for the drainage, a little bit of organic material from the compost pile.
Gotcha.
Because they compost that mulch, and a little bit of mulch just for aeration. So they mix all that up for you. When you get it, it's not bad soil, but it doesn't have a whole lot of nutrients in it.
Okay.
Then you can go to Lowe's or somewhere or another garden center and buy good composted black cows, one you hear a lot about. It has manures in it, which is really good for your soil because it has a lot of nutrients in it. So you're building a soil rather than over an extended period of time is pretty much plug and play. Cut the bag open, dump it in. Somebody already did all that work. So you can do that and have a decent bed to grow in, and you amend it over time. Just keep adding good compost to it, and you will eventually have a killer bed. The other thing that base layer will do is retain moisture. Wood chips, leaf litter, all of that will hold about 9 times their weight in water. So, watering is an issue for any gardener.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you mulch the top of it where it doesn't lose moisture, you don't have just raw dirt being baked by the sun. If you have a layer of mulch on top of it, it kind of suppresses the weeds. B, that holds moisture.
Mm-hmm.
And C, it doesn't allow the evaporation near as fast. We did a garden with the chips on top, and we pre-treated them with some nitrogen so they didn't steal my good nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
But I almost had to do no watering. I used a drip irrigation for the first year, and I noticed, I check my soil before I water. Does it need it? It may not need it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you reach down, dig down 2 inches and pull up some dirt, and you can squeeze it and it holds into a ball, it's plenty of moisture. You don't want your plants sitting in water. All they need is moisture. Okay. So I found that I really didn't need to irrigate almost at all.
Interesting.
And this was July and August, and I'm going, okay, I see what's happened here. All those wood chips held the water, didn't allow it to run off. So every time we got a little rain, I retained that rain in my mulch. And I've had to drip irrigation on that for almost 10 years. Very rarely do I ever turn it on.
Interesting.
And I'm going, well, I was stupid to put that in there. But I didn't know.
Right, sure.
I didn't know how well it worked. Of course, I knew it would work, but I thought I'd be using it a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't have to. Over time, that process, the second to third year, you're building up an organic layer that's holding a lot of moisture, and the microbes go, perfect environment for us. So now you have living soils all of a sudden.
I'm going to stop you there. We need to look into, with all this AI stuff, create a little cartoon. You need to have cartoon characters for like the microbes and stuff. Yeah. I mean, seriously, we were talking about cartoons earlier and plowing. This is, I'm always intrigued by this stuff. There's so much going on underneath your feet that you have no idea.
It was about 7th grade in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really good biology teacher.
Right.
And one of the things when you get into high school, you have cooler stuff to mess with.
Right.
One of the coolest things I seen was a microscope. I grew up poor. We never had a microscope.
Right, sure.
Being it was about $700.
Yeah.
But there were tables of them, and I was like, wow. So the first time you use it, there's different settings on it.
Right.
And you get to see, I think that's the first thing we looked at was an onion skin.
Okay.
Because you can see every cell in that onion and how that works. And that was a good example. And that goes to my teacher. He knew what would make you go, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everything that we grabbed a hold of, we wanted to stick it under there to look at,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we do that enough, where we give younger kids, way before high school, right. you have to trigger their mind to go, I want to learn more.
Yeah.
We're dumbing our kids down. So parents, if you want your kids to be inquisitive and want to learn more, you're going to have to give something to stimulate them. And I'm here to tell you, these little microscopes now, they're like $200.
Right.
You will use. In gardening,
right?
I do it all the time. Mm-hmm. I make some compost tea.
Right.
I pull out a slide, I look at it, and I go, wow, all kinds of guys in there dancing around. And you notice that there's like 10 different kinds.
Yeah.
And you go, wow, that's a living soul. That's what they talk about all the time. And here I am doing it. And if you don't have it, find somebody that does. Mm-hmm. So you understand what you're building in your soil. So I had a wise man once tell me, he said, don't worry about feeding your plants. Worry about feeding your microbes. feeding the fungi. So that kind of spurred me on. Okay, well, what's my fungi and stuff eat? Well, they eat sugars, almost all of them. They're teenagers, you know. They're just living off a sugar high.
Right.
But for that, they actually do some work, and that's where they differ from teenagers.
Right.
So,
Edit
you
that
know,
part out.
they're the old school teenagers
No, I
where
get
Dad made them work. But
Sure.
sorry about that, teenagers. Changed my mind.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't like what I just said, then change my mind. Because I'm going to be right 90% of the time today.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're the 10%, God bless you. And you're a blessing to your parents. So, but back to these microbes, you know, that they want sugars. And when you put these raw wood chips on there that may have come from a tulip poplar tree, which has a lot of sugar, they'll start using that. You peel back a piece of that mulch after 3 months, and there will be this web underneath of mycorrhizal fungi that are establishing this entire network between themselves of carrying nutrients that they find in exchange for the sugar from the plant and from the mulch itself. You can also put brown sugar in your garden.
I didn't know.
Brown sugar has a little bit of sulfur in it.
Okay.
Molasses is even better because it has a lot of minerals in it that plants can use, the microbes can use. So I'm starting to see a lot of these videos that I've been telling everybody about. All this information is coming out in very detailed videos, man. Look it up. It is exploding with the information because it's needed.
Right.
To grow food. America is waking up to the fact that their food is very expensive now. They're waking up to the fact that maybe the food is not as nutritious as it should be. I brought you some strawberries.
Right.
I bet you've eaten strawberries in the past from somewhere, store maybe. You're going to be surprised at the flavor that you're going to get out of my strawberries. And that's because they were grown naturally, no pesticides, picked when ripe rather than picked to ship or profit.
Right.
But all that comes out of the earth. All those little extra flavors that you get from my homemade strawberries, homegrown strawberries, is because of the soil.
Right.
Because of the microbes have gone down into the rocks, into the dirt, brought up these micronutrients that is so critical for your nutrition. If you don't get this wow taste out of your vegetables or fruit, is because the nutrients are not there. The price is still there.
Oh, absolutely.
But the nutrients are not. So that's my point. People have come to the point where they go, wow, it is now more profitable to me to grow my food than to buy my food. That's never happened. Since the industrial agriculture started, it's always been, it's cheaper to buy. It's cheaper to buy than to do all that work. Well, that's not the case anymore. And it's getting worse all the time.
Right.
So people are saying, well, how? I only have this small patch. Ta-da, here we are today, saying you can grow a lot of nutritional food in a small area. I don't want to hear, oh, I don't have a big garden space. Do you have a flower bed? Yank your flowers up that you can't eat and start putting in some vegetables. There's a thing called food forest. Have you ever heard of it? Instead of having a planting bed of flowers and bushes and stuff, they just plant all their vegetables in this garden area, which was typically for bushes and flowers. Any empty space, they packed it in with some vegetable. So when it comes up, man, there's just stuff growing everywhere. Every square inch, square foot gardening, every square foot is covered by a plant. Second thing that does is no weeding, because your vegetables are going to crowd out the weeds. But all this food is growing, and it's not this pretty, organized nice symmetrical planting bed or rows, but it's still the same food, and isn't that the goal?
Yeah.
So if that's all you have, then that's what you work with, and that's what the square foot gardening is all about. Is using whatever space you have to make that garden work for you, to make it produce a food that's worth about $5 a pound.
Can we talk about sunlight for a minute?
Sure.
And trying to find, because it needs to have a certain amount, or what?
Certain things are going to take full sun, no doubt.
Okay.
Like you're not going to grow sweet potatoes in the shade. They like full sun. They like it hot.
Okay.
Watermelons, same way.
Okay.
Doesn't mean they won't grow there.
Right.
A lot of the squash and things, they like the shade. That's why you can plant them in between your corn rows, and it keeps them from wilting. You know, you hit a day in August where it's 101 degrees, you look over at your squash plant and they look pitiful. They droop down because they've closed up all their cells and tried to make themselves smaller, reduce their surface area. But as soon as the evening comes, maybe a little evening shower, boom, they pop right back open. So if you have some partial shaded area, there's some things that do real well. A lot of the cold crops will do okay in a partially shaded, if you have a partially wood. Now, if it's dense woodland cover, you're only going to have a limited amount of things you can plant.
Okay.
But the things that tend to be like that are okay too, like carrots. Carrots will do okay in a partially shaded area.
Okay.
The squash, the cucumbers. There's a lot. Corn, they want full sun.
Okay.
So reserve the sunniest spot for things that need full sun.
Okay.
And if you flip the package around, your seed packet, it'll tell you plant in full sun.
Right. Okay.
So there are options for whatever place you have. Raised bed gardenings, some people may have just a hillside. That works pretty good for a raised bed garden because you can terrace a raised bed garden on a hillside.
Right.
And say this about square foot garden. It tends to be high input in the beginning. It's not as easy as just running a rototiller across nice, flat, perfect soil. So there is some input. Usually it has to do with some materials to build a perimeter around it, as in raised beds. And it doesn't matter what you use. To do that, you're going to have to either scavenge it, cut it out of the woods, or buy it. So if that's your only option is to buy it, okay, but you still have a permanent place to grow food now. They sell these metal rings that looks like a water trough that people are using for square foot gardens. There's all kinds of new videos coming out of people that are DIYing these projects out of oddball stuff. How about a cardboard box? Did you ever think about that? If you took like a banana box, it's about 12 inches high, 18 by 16, and you just put one right next to another and built a line of, or a double line, so it's 4 foot wide of these boxes. Fill them full of your soil and then just pack mulch around the outside edge. You just created a raised bed out of cardboard boxes.
Okay.
Now that cardboard box will last about 3 to 4 years.
Really? Oh, okay.
And didn't cost you a dime.
I tell you what, some of these boxes that I've gotten in because we put some stuff together, they came with some pretty thick cardboard.
Yes. If you're a little inventive and MacGyver type,
yes,
there's all kinds of materials. If it's 10, 12 inches high, and you can attach it together and put some stakes in to keep it from falling over, you can make a raised bed. And for me to sit and tell you all the materials you can make one out of, it would be foolish. It's limited by your imagination. Old wooden crates, I don't care what it is. Next one will be straw bales. Now,
I did the straw bales 1 year.
Did you age them first?
I did not do it properly.
Okay.
I can tell you that.
If you're going to use straw bales, which does work, they must be soaked with water, and you'd be surprised how much water you got to put on to soak a straw bale.
All right.
Because they're little tubes. They are straws.
Yeah. Well,
hence the name. And they take a lot of water.
Right.
So, but you have to age them. And you can do that just covering them up with clear plastic, black plastic, I don't care what you do.
Right.
Put them out in the sun, soak them really good, but they need to be there about 3 months.
3 months, okay.
So it takes a while. So when you pull the cover off, you can take a look at them. They're starting to turn gray. Now, to dig down into a straw bale is pretty tough. But what I found is you could take a hole saw or a paddle bit for a drill.
Yes.
And drill little holes all the way around it till you've eaten a hole out of that straw. Now, the straw needs to be sideways, not where the strings on the side rather than on top and bottom.
Okay.
Because it'll eat the strings right off the bottom. Everything pops apart, and now you got this balloons mess everywhere. But turn them up on the side.
Right. Okay.
So the straws are facing up.
Yeah.
So every time it rains, it re-waters.
It fits. Okay.
And the idea here is once you get that thing soaked and it aged a little bit, it will retain that water, and there shouldn't be a whole lot of watering to it.
Okay.
So let's say you can get 6 nice plants in that straw bale. So it is densely packed. Cucumbers do pretty good in those.
Okay, cucumbers.
But the holes you're going to make are only going to be about 6 inches deep down into the straw bales and only about 4 to 5 inches around. Fill that with good soil, put your stuff right in there, and there's going to be a microbial action taking place in that straw bale. Oat straw does the best because they seem to carry a lot of microbes with them. So you already have an inoculation of microbes in there already.
Okay.
So you can see you can stack straw bales in all kinds of cool little patterns and you can stair step them up if you want to get artsy fartsy. But straw's not cheap neither. That's $10.
Is that what it is?
Good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good thing about straw and the baling process now is they don't use the little hemp twine. It won't rot. They use that nylon.
Yep.
It'll be blue. It may be pink. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that won't rot away, and it'll hold that together for years.
Okay.
I've got one that I've used for squash because it just loved that stuff. This is my 8th year for that straw bale. Now
Really?
it looks
Wow.
kind of sad,
Right.
Because it's kind of pooched out and starting to fall apart because the microbes have just eat it all up.
Sure.
But I don't want to give it up because it does so well.
Yeah.
I eventually will, but on to new things.
For sure.
Another new stress. So I'm thinking, okay, it cost me about $1.20 a year to create a square foot garden out of these things.
Yeah.
And actually it'd be 4 square feet of garden in a 1 straw bale. So that's an option.
Well, Glenn, the bales are an interesting way. I like I had mentioned, I had done that myself here at our house, and this is going to be a good place to break it. But we'll come back next week and go back to these bales as we talk about square foot gardening. Tell us maybe 1 or 2 more things that we're going to venture into next week as far as this whole idea of square foot gardening, because you have limited space.
Well, we're going from flat ground to an elevated surface. And when you start talking about, you can do trellising.
Oh, trellising, okay.
Or just a simple fence panel. So we got
right,
a few
well,
things we can talk about next week.
Well, let's do that then, bud. Thank you.
Yep.
Join us again next week for Sustainable Living with Glenn Boblitz, helping you be prepared and not scared. This podcast drops every Friday anywhere you get your podcast.